Speedlights. Yes, I use them, and today I'm going to take you through the lighting setups in which I use them the most, as well as some useful tips so that you can recreate images like these. And yes, we're going to get creative too. First, let's start with using flash on camera. Now, I personally think this look has always been in style, but every year someone says it's coming back, well, I think it never left. Used improperly, it does just feel like you had no other choice, but used wisely, it's simply one of my favorite lighting setups, period. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of how I have this bracket situated, let's start with the first lighting setup. I know the Profoto A2 has a beam angle of 62 degrees and a field angle of 105 degrees. The beam angle is measured when the light falls off from the center by one stop, and the field of view is the total effective spread of the light. So why does this matter? My Fuji GFX 45 to 100mm lens has an angle of view of 62.6 to 30.6 degrees, so the two are a perfect match. The flash on camera will light the scene more evenly if the angle of the lens doesn't exceed the angle of the light when going for a flash on camera look. So for this first set of images, I'll adjust my crop by zooming in and out so my exposure doesn't change by me moving closer. Now, the beauty of on-camera flash using speedlights is it's very forensic. By this, I mean it just shows what's in front of the camera. There is no hiding. So one thing that constantly gets overlooked is art direction, paying close attention to the details of what's actually in the photograph. So let's talk creative. For instance, I'm using a painted backdrop on the floor because I like its texture. Then we have our model in a bright pink skirt that really reacts well with direct light. Then the gold accents in her shoes and jewelry are picked up in the shirt. And finally, I have her on an apple box I painted gold. And we went with red lipstick to complement the bright pink. I even used pink tape to hold the background against the baseboard and incorporated it into the full length shots for a bit more of an editorial feel. And I really don't mind the tape on the wall because I think on-camera flash begs for things to be a little loose. So now let's take this editorial shoot a bit further and move to some different locations. I love using speedlights on location as you need no setup. Just think about your composition and shoot. So by simply going into the bathroom with these silver stalls, we were able to quickly grab some more shots with zero setup. I love the way the on-camera flash flares off the metal stalls. To incorporate the warm streaks of the light on top of the stalls, I was shooting at ISO 400 at 1/125th of a second and f4 on a 45mm lens. But when I wanted to get rid of these warm streaks so you could only see the light coming from the speedlight, effectively knocking down all the ambient light within the bathroom, I raised the power to f11, reducing the ambient light by 3 stops. Then we went to a conference room, incorporating a laptop as a prop, and again, our model styling helps her pop off the background, and these images now give one more setup in our editorial shoot. Now for my next setup, I'm going to use speedlights off camera. So we have all seen this look, but I bet you didn't know speedlights do it the best because of the light source's relative small size to our subject, producing an absolutely crispy shadow with zero halo around them, like you would get using direct sun. Again, for this shot, art direction plays a key role. The color of the chair complementing the model's skin, the red painted backdrop on the floor with her red stockings, with the silver shoes giving a subtle contrast to the floor, and the silver jewelry. I brought in a V-Flat World 2.0 V-Flat here to reduce the contrast of the shadows, but the sharpness of the shadows you can only really get with a speedlight because it is just so small. Okay, now for a quick tip. If you want more dynamic images, even with the simplest of lighting, move around. Straight on, these shots look good, but when I choose a different angle, see what happens? Now with a little angle to the horizon, your eye is drawn down towards our model, and we tend to read images left from right, and it's a much stronger composition. This is one of my favorite lighting setups. I would just make sure to zoom your speedlight out to its widest setting and position it off axis depending on how long you want your shadows. When you combine this shot with our previous shot using similar creative direction cues, even with the light changing, the images marry well together. So far, we have 4 completely different lighting setups and have done the most minimal lighting possible. One using a speedlight on camera and another using a speedlight off camera, and just switching up locations, which is really easy when you're using flash on camera. When using the speedlight off camera, I did meter the light to see how it was falling off from left to right because I end up feathering the light so the right side and the left side were illuminated more evenly. And I added a V-flat to help open up the right side of the wall as well as reduce the contrast and the hard shadow that I mentioned earlier. Now let's complicate things a bit. For this shot, I was thinking nightclub, but I wanted another take on incorporating studio elements and gear into a shoot besides the standard old Hollywood Fresnel and hand-painted backdrops. So here I put another Profoto A2 and an old Hollywood Fresnel, mounting it to a super clamp, and popped on a magnetic red gel, which I thought I'd never use, but it worked really good in this instance. And then I have an A2 on top of my camera as well. For these images, in which I'm a bit farther away, I put a 20-degree grid to throw the light so it's flagged off hitting the rest of the studio, giving us a natural vignette. And I'm using a Nanlux Dyno 1200C that I normally use to light the studio for my video, and just angle it down and get a wash of light on the floor and hitting our model's jumpsuit. Moving in closer, I remove the grid and I adjust my exposure manually every time I get closer or further away. On the shots when I'm pulled way back and have the camera low to the ground, I use a monitor bracket so I can tilt the A2 with the 20-degree grid up so it hits more of the model's face and not her stomach. One of the reasons I like using a small monitor bracket is because I can dial in just enough tension so I can have it stay wherever I point it. So for this shoot, I could only have this look with on-camera flash or an assistant constantly moving around with me, Hollywooding light as I move around. Plus, when I mount lights inside of other lights, the size of speedlights is key for that. Now let's talk about the rig. I'm using a Pro Media Gear bracket, which enables me to securely mount the A2. It allows me to position the light above the lens versus being to the left or right of the lens when doing vertical or horizontal shots. I prefer keeping the light above the lens when using on-camera flash, and another benefit of the small rig head is that it allows me to tilt it down when I'm above, which is limited on many traditional speedlights. Now for the most important part of this rig: how am I getting this flash to fire being this close to the remote? Which oftentimes you can run into some RF signal issues. Well, Profoto has a secret menu. Simply navigate to Advanced, then go to About, and hold down the center button and modeling light button simultaneously. And now that you're in this screen, setting 7 seems to let the transmitter work when placed very close to the flash. I find you need about 3 inches away to be safe. I love using speedlights because they are lightweight and easy to set up. I was originally going to use a Profoto A10 for this video, but I learned the A2 had a wider natural beam angle and sat lower on my flash bracket. But feel free to comment below. If you think technically the A2 is not a speedlight, well, to me it is, and it has the same size head, although no hot shit. And sometimes the simplest lighting just works, especially when you spend time to curate what's actually in front of your camera, because it's hard to light your way out of a bad scene. Oftentimes, I like to think of myself as lighting spaces, not faces, but when I use flash on camera, I'm pretty much lighting everything. Because as you know, there are levels to this. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this on Adorama TV. And remember, I answer every single comment, and I have about 35 videos on Adorama TV now, so make sure you look back into the playlist to check out more videos in the Level Up Lighting Show.